Hey guys, it's David Nakayama, live from Hawaii with Comics Online. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, I really loved our conversation. I know it was brief at C2E2 and you had a line of people, so thank you for sharing what you did as far as time with me. But getting to celebrate the talented individuals in the world of comics is a big part of what we've done at Comics Online for nearly 25 years. And what we're doing right now for our anniversary is actually Secret Origins. Not about the characters, but more of the people and how you got started in comics. And I would just love to hear, what was your entry point into the world of comics?
Yeah, it was there was a big lag between the I want to do this and the oh, I get to do this. I wanted to do it since I was like a teenager, 13 or so, was buying the comics. There was just this specific moment in time where I saw Jim Lee working on X-Men on Uncanny before he started X-Men 1. Not to date myself completely, but when I saw that, I simultaneously was like, oh, that's the place I want to put my artistic, you know, whatever. I was an artistic kid. I wanted to put it somewhere, and comics became the thing specifically after looking at his work. I wanted to read it, I wanted to draw, and it just took a long time to actually put that into practice.
So now you're getting to work with all of these major publishers. Let me see if I can go down the list. You're doing Absolute Comics covers for DC. You've got a handful of other DC covers as well. You just did Transformers. I've seen a handful of ones with Robert Kirkman and Dan Mora's recent run. You've got X-Men covers. You've got your exclusives. I mean, really, it feels like you're covering a pretty wide, set of iconic properties.
Yeah.
How did that end up coming to fruition? Where was your start with that as far as getting to do these more unique cover designs?
I think you just see my own personal fandom reflected in the things I work on. All along, the wish and the plan, the hope was to work on, you know, X-Men books with Marvel, and can I get on Wonder Woman? Can I get on Transformers? And it's just strange that it happened to be this year where all those things are happening simultaneously, and that wasn't the plan. I didn't think it would all be at once, but if someone's going to offer it to you and you've been wanting to work on it literally your entire life, I'm not going to say no. I'm very busy. I'm overworked, but it feels good because it feels like making up for lost time or like fulfilling the dream that you had since you were a little kid. So that's why you see me on all those things kind of simultaneously.
Well, it's a good problem to have, and the fact that you're getting to explore so many different facets of pop culture with your art is wonderful to see as a reader. And I will say I've never been a alternate cover collector, but every time I see yours pop up, it's very hard to put them down. So
Thank you.
I appreciate the personal touches that you add to the alternate covers.
Thank you very much. I feel like if an alternate cover is going to exist at all, there has to be like some special reason to get that, above and beyond, or instead of even the main cover. There has to be like something special about it. So I'm thinking about that whenever I make them, and I'm glad it's working for you.
Well, one of our conversations at C2E2 was about Green Lantern in particular. We just got to see
Hmm.
the launch of Green Lantern 600. Kyle Rayner is back in the
Yes.
lead role, and you got to design his new costume.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Uh, I,
Go
I
ahead.
I can't believe that's a thing. But this is wish fulfillment too. Like when I started, reading comics, that was right around the time that Superman died, and they were doing the big event things. Hal Jordan goes crazy and kills the core. Spoiler alert for like 25 years. And Kyle took over. So Kyle was my guy. And then, years later, for them to ask, to have me redesign the outfit, and then, I'm actually going to be on for a nice little run of covers here for Green Lantern. This is, it's just the wish fulfillment thing. I couldn't be more happy about projects like this.
You had told me that there were a number of variations that you went through before you settled on this, we'll say, more modern interpretation of his classic costume. Could you talk about what the design process was like and just sort of how the collaboration with DC worked for this particular instance?
Sure. They right away knew that they wanted to have a streamlined look. That was sort of the goal right up front from editorial, and that made sense to me because that is the look that the original I want to say Daryl Banks look from back in the day. Uh, was the look you think of most with Kyle, but it is a little bit chunky. It feels. I'm not disparaging in any way, but it feels of its time, and we wanted to see what that would look like if filtered through a modern lens. Simplify it, streamline it, that sort of thing. So within that constraint, I didn't want to limit myself. I wanted to start broad, and then we would hone in on something. So there are lots of stupid ideas where, well, let's try this color over here or that over there. And you're like, nope, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look like Kyle. And very quickly, you start to hone in on better and better ideas. And the real clincher we found at the end is the chest shield thing. Tried it for a long time without that or without a version of that, and it just doesn't work. Doesn't feel like that suit without it. My opinion is that the mask is a little less iconic. Some people like the very large mask. To me, it's a little bit much. So we condensed it. It still has the double layering, it still has the points, all that stuff. It's just not fully covering his nose. Well, it is actually does like a Batman mask cover this much of the nose, but not all the way down here.
I got to have a really deep dive conversation with Ron Mars either last year or the year before. It's all a blur now. But getting to hear about the evolution of Kyle's story and just where he came from at that time in DC is such an interesting background. And it wasn't the fact that it wasn't really the plan for him to be the next Green Lantern, or necessarily that there was a specific story that he got to come in and sort of just rebuild this character and figure out what the path was going to be. And the version of Kyle that he pitched is where Kyle ended up. I
Mm.
also valued the fact that Kyle, as a character and as an artist, is always doing something different as far as his constructs, but then also changing his costume. And one of the things you asked me, because I had gotten to read it earlier, was what did they do to set the stage as far as the costume change? And I loved that they did nothing. It was just Kyle has a new costume because Kyle always has a new costume, and that's fine. I think that
Right?
speaks to his character.
Yeah, I was just looking at this the other day, and it just he's just wearing it. At one panel, this issue is broken up into sort of chapters, and in the first chapter, he's not wearing it. You're kind of going through his origin, and then we catch up to modern time, and then he's just wearing it because that's what Kyle does. He's an inventive guy.
Now, you had also mentioned when we were in person in Chicago that there were a couple of favorites from his catalog. I would just be curious to know, which ones have stood out to you personally over time.
Yeah, in researching for the costume update, we looked at every single one he's ever had. We looked at the Brightest Day one and the Ion one, and I think within Ion, I think there was a Jim Lee version of that was a bit different. And there are moments here and there that are cool. I did like this sort of more graphic symbol that appears on, I want to say, the Ion one. And his mask has changed a lot. A lot of people seem to have not read Kyle between like when he was first introduced and now, but his mask has changed a lot over the years. Um, I felt like we were sort of bringing that back to sort of a middle stage while retaining elements of the original one. Anyway, the whole process was just sort of mixing in cool moments here and there from his history, nodding to this, nodding to that, streamlining the original, kind of leaning heavier toward the original than most. But that's sort of the stew, like focus on the original, bring in some extras, streamline.
And you also got to do another update for his, we'll say, companion character, Odyssey, who's his
Yeah.
supporting cast for this. I know that was an original character that Jeremy and the team had come up with. earlier in the run. So, what went into her redesign, or what were the classic elements from the last dozen or so issues that you really want to make sure maintained, but then moved into the next evolution?
Yeah. So as you say, she's a very new character. She hasn't been around that long, but she's really fun. Especially if you read 600, they have a neat rapport that is different than maybe it's a little bit more like Simon and Jessica kind of playing off of each other thing. I like that going on in with their relationship. But anyway, her vibe is relatively new, relatively unestablished, I guess, and she's a space girl. Like she has a gray bodysuit and she has a big cyan star over her eye. So within that, I was thinking, well, what can I do to maybe jazz that up just a little bit, right? So my thought was maybe all gray is a little bit less visually interesting than it could be. So in my design, we mixed in some some elements that break up the all gray. She has a white sort of bolero jacket, and she's got these neon color pops spread around the costume that give you that sort of sci-fi uh, vibe. I think a little bit more tightened up the star a little bit on her face, gave her a "I'm going to work," uh, ponytail. Just sort of taking what was there and maybe giving it a little more visual flair, I guess.
I like that the character also has a little bit of an Indiana Jones vibe to her, and obviously they've played out some of those aspects in recent issues. But it's just been fun to see how her character has grown just in the short amount of time that she's been on the page.
I really enjoy her too, and you'll see the next two variant covers that I did for the series will focus on her. The second one after this one is all about her, and it just has Kyle's ring in the immediate foreground because she's like he's confronting her over something. And then in the third one, it's the two of them in a classic team up type shot. So and more to come. So looking forward to drawing them more.
So I want to segue, talking about some of the other covers you've gotten to do recently. Robert Kirkman taking over the lead writing role for Transformers. We just had Dan Mora, doing the primary art, and then now we transition. And I apologize, I'm blanking on the artist's name who's taken over. It was the Ghost Pepper artist who's doing the run, but just the
Yep.
current run of Transformers has really done some amazing stuff to move the mythology along. And now Alita One playing a different role and getting to see your take on that was definitely a highlight as
Thank
the
you.
new issues have come out.
I really agree. I'm a big fan of, the way Transformers, that series has been written all along is very much that, skybound Robert Kirkman style, where they lay out the stakes right away. Anybody's at risk, anything can happen. It's darker and more serious than the 80s cartoon necessarily, although right there in line with the movie, I have to say. Um, and that's great. Like it feels like there are real stakes in that book in a way that a lot of comics just don't have. And Kirkman coming in is a totally logical thing because that is the style of writing that we've got in the book, and he has, I think, intensified the rate at which the crazy happens. So there seems like there's a huge new development almost every issue. With Thundercracker, not spoiling anything, with what happened with Superion, what happened with Megatron in the last issue, learning about him, Alita One, RC, like there are a lot of characters with big things happening all the time. I think like you're just almost whiplash by how much stuff is happening.
But it's so easy to forget that all these other properties are rebooting regularly. TV shows we see reboots, reimaginings regularly, and it feels like we're getting to see a different spin on the mythology that is still original, but feels grounded in Generation One in particular, as opposed to just let's throw the baby out with the bathwater and start from scratch.
Yeah, I having grown up with G1, that is where my heart's at. I don't think I'd be as interested if they did some kind of like I didn't grow up with Beast Wars, for example. If it was Beast Wars, I'd be less interested. But grounding it on those designs and that continuity in particular is exactly my sweet spot. And I don't think I'm alone. I think most of the readership is probably right there with me.
Do you remember what your personal first introduction to comics was, other than the X-Men issue that you mentioned, or what was the first comic you purchased?
Well, let's see. Going all the way back to the beginning, like I remember being a kid and you would go to like the bookstore or even 7-Eleven at the time. They had comics right there on the newsstand. That doesn't even exist anymore, but you could there'd be a selection and you would just sort of randomly get one here and there. I remember getting a Sal Buscema Spectacular Spider-Man that had Puma in it. If someone wants to track that down, just randomly. And I was like, wow, this is intriguing. And that built up to like at some point my parents ordered me like for Christmas like a it was like a through the Sears catalog. God, I'm dating myself so much this today, but they had a thing where you could order like a starter kit from Marvel, and it came with an Arthur Adams short box before that was even a term, and like I don't know, like 20 random issues that month. And so that was like a treasure trove to me. I'm like, wow, Fantastic Four and Quasar. Like, what is all this stuff? I have no idea. Let me read all about this.
Well, so now that you're getting to touch all these different properties and work with so many characters that we all love and care for, is there one on your bucket list that you haven't gotten to touch yet that you really hope that you'll have the opportunity to do at some point?
Um, this year, but if you'd asked me this last year, I would have mentioned all the stuff I'm doing this year. It's really weird how that has worked out. It's really the wish list, like the X-Men, being on long runs on things like Harley and Wonder Woman, um, and Transformers. I never expected that one, but so glad for it. Green Lantern is potentially a run. I mean, it's like a mini run at least. Yeah, I think I'm really checking a lot of the boxes. And so what that does to you, I think, is it makes you start thinking about, well, okay, if you've accomplished one goal, then what's next, right? Like what else would I want to do? And I think part of me wants to explore fandoms that don't cross my path, like anime or video game stuff. I love that stuff too. It just never crosses your path in Western comics.
Mhm.
Last year there was a really special occasion where TMNT crossed over with Naruto, and I mean, like people don't even understand like how rare and like special that was. But fortunately, I got to draw cover for it, so I'm very happy about that. If more of those things could happen, that'd be amazing. Um, maybe at some point I might do my own thing. I haven't had 1 minute to think about that yet, but maybe I will.
Is there a character or a team that surprised you as you were putting your own spin on the cover, just as you were trying to figure out what your take was going to be?
They all do. They all do. Like I find that the scariest part of taking on a new project is the first six or so covers because you don't know what your take is yet. You're thinking about, oh, when Campbell or Alex Ross or whoever drew that sure was cool. I'm going to do my version of their version, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But after a while you start going, nah, it feels better to draw it this way. And I think I'd be curious what other artists think, but for me, it takes about six covers to really start feeling like you're drawing it your way. um, and so yeah, with Wonder Woman and Harley, we're past that point now where we're into that really sweet spot where I know how to draw her the way I like to draw her, and let's go have fun now.
Are there any other projects coming up that you can share or anything you'd like to announce?
Well, one really exciting thing going on right now, beside all the ongoings we talked about, are these Marvel color blocks. That when we're in Chicago, I'd say the three things I saw the most that people wanted signed. So, anecdotally, take it as a sign of maybe interest. I saw Transformers 25 a lot. I saw um, Superman, Spider-Man was coming out that week, so I saw that a lot. And then it was the color blocks. People were bringing me the Red series that had just come out, and we were talking a lot about the White series, which is currently coming out right now. In fact, plug. The Emma Frost one on X-Men United 2 is out today. um, So I'm very excited about that. And on the Blue series, which is the third announced one, um, there all along I've wanted to sort of collect them all like after a while you start to go, oh, okay, these all look great together. So can I get all the cool characters in comics in this style? And the missing ones for the longest time were the Avengers. And so in the Blue series, count on some of those Avengers characters finally. Like you can put two and two together. Who's primarily blue and an Avenger that David would want to draw, and maybe be able to guess some of those. But I love the lineup in blue so much because it's so many of those holy grails for me.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't say how much I enjoyed your Superman Spider-Man cover. I thought that that was an absolute win, and the fact that that book even exists and all of these crossover events that are happening with Marvel and DC, it's just something we didn't think we'd see again. And I mean, for me, I loved the all access events and the DC Marvel crossovers in the '90s, and the amalgam pieces. Oh, it just
I
it
didn't
just
pl-
looks
I
so
didn't
great.
plan this.
Yeah.
We're just this is unscripted, unplanned, but I just happen to have these right here because they sent me comps the other day. Yeah, man, this is like this has been on our wish list for 20 plus years,
Yeah.
like it's been I remember so fondly those amalgam books and the Marvel versus DC crossover. Got the omnibus right up there in my bookshelf. So to draw something like this is like I think it's never going to happen again, right? This is a once in a lifetime. So I bought a fair few copies of this.
I think the fact that we're seeing that, and even just as you mentioned, the Naruto and Ninja Turtles crossover, the Power Rangers Ninja Turtles crossover has been one of my favorites. But just seeing these characters play in other universes, the DCKO boss battle event that Jeremy got to write, bringing in all of these amazing characters from different industries, that was frankly insane. We shouldn't have ever gotten something like that. And for the amount of yeses that were required to make a single issue, it's just we're very fortunate, I think, and seeing a renaissance when it comes to comics. And I think the collaborative nature is really at a one I would say a high point for all of us. So I'm thankful
Yeah.
that so many people are willing to try and innovate, but also not be content with just the status quo of no, we'll stick to our titles, our books, our characters, but letting them play, it just feels like it's a breath of fresh air.
100%. It's I've never seen it more chaotic in a good way than it is right now, and it's like that doesn't happen in any other medium because legal crap gets in the way, but somehow they're making it happen. So like thank you legal teams and creative editorial people at both or at all these companies for making this stuff possible. This is like when comics are the most fun.
Well, and I think it's also a great jumping on point for readers as well, as you're getting new people excited, but also bringing back the fans that have historically been excited too, finding new opportunities for them to celebrate the stories and the characters that we've all loved for so many years.
Totally agree. Couldn't say it better.